Good morning, Jim, Josiah, Claire, and Samantha. We have a really fun group time ahead of us today. So, as you know from when we were all on the carpet as a class, we were introduced to decimals. Can you all say decimals? And we were looking at how they're very similar to fractions, which we know about because they're not quite a whole. They're little fractional pieces of a whole. So before I begin, did any of you guys not have a chance to share when we were reflecting on where we might see decimals in our everyday lives? Claire? Oh, I didn't even think of that. When you run a mile, I know you're very into running. And when you're tracking how many miles you have, sometimes you might have 1.5 of a mile, but not quite 2. So that's what we're going to be continuing with today. Now, before I go any further, who can remind me what this is called? Our decimal point. Nice job. And here I have my flat, my rod, and we said these are kind of our tiny squares, or our cubes. So who can remind me, which one was our new whole that we were looking at as a whole? Awesome, Josiah. This, right? Our flat. So just so we can have this up here as we continue, I'm going to label this our whole. And now, who can remind me what we called our tenths? Samantha? Awesome. So this was our rod, and we looked at this and we called it our tenth. So that's that unit. And then Jim, do you remember what we called this? Awesome, our hundredth. Now, who can remind me from when we were all on the carpet, how many tenths do you need to complete an entire whole? Claire? Awesome, you need 10 tenths to fit in the whole. And now, Jim, how many hundredths did you need to fit in the whole? Right, 100. Now, what about this one? How many hundredths can I fit in my tenth? Samantha? Awesome, 10. So this is going to be really important as we move forward because we're going to be comparing decimals and fractions for the rest of 5th grade. So now we are going to be doing a game, a fun game for our group time. And I'm going to have Claire and Samantha working together and Jim and Josiah working together. You will have your place value mats in front of you to help you. The game is called Cover Up. And then you'll also have a set of written instructions in front of you as well that you and your partner can use as we go. So before we start, I'm going to quickly model for you guys how to play this game. So now, the whole point of the game is to cover up your flat. So I have hundredths and tenths here, and you and your partner will each have your own whole or your own flat, as well as your own die. So as the game goes on, you and your partner will each take a turn, and you'll roll the die one time. Now, I got a 4, so I have 2 options. I can either put 4 hundredths on my flat or 4 tenths on my flat. And the whole goal or objective of the game is you want to cover up your flat without going over. If you go over and you have more than a whole, then you lose and your partner wins. And you are only allowed 1 skip. It's a lot harder than it sounds. So I'm going to show you really quickly. Let's see, I rolled a 4. I'm going to choose 4 tenths, which again is larger. It's a larger unit, my tenths, than the hundredths. So looking at my whole, how many tenths will I need to fill it up? Awesome, 6 tenths, Claire, nice. So then, let's say my partner rolls, and now it's my turn again. And I have 6. Now this was an easy game. I got 6, so I would choose tenths, and I would have filled it up all the way. But just to make it a little more interesting for you guys and so you can see what can happen, let's say I didn't get that 6, and I got a 6 again. I got a 5. Maybe I'll choose 5 tenths again. If I chose 5 hundredths, I would be about here, and I would look at the little individual squares. So now looking at this, I have 9/10 covering my board. I know I need 10/10 to make a hole, so I have room for 1/10 here. Now I have to be careful. Let's say I roll again my next turn and I get a 4. I have no choice and I have to do 4/100ths. Now I'm getting nervous because I'm getting towards the end. So Jim, how many more hundredths would I need to make a hole? Awesome, 6/100ths. Because if you remember, 10/100ths go into 1/10. 10/100ths go into 1/10. So now let's see, I roll again. I get a 1. Awesome, I'm getting close, but I'm not going over. Now I need 5/100ths to complete my hole. See, I roll again. I get 4. So now I need 1 more 100th. Let's see if I can roll a 1. If not, it's not a big deal because I can use my skip. Oh, and look at that. I got a 1. So I would have won that game. Let's say I didn't roll a 1 and I rolled a 4. I would want to skip that turn because that would put me over a hole and I would lose and my partner would win. So let's say I skipped that 4. I would need a 1 this time and I got a 5 up, I would lose the game. So that's how we're going to play this. Now you guys can give it a try. Again, Claire and Samantha, you two can work together and begin. Jim and Josiah, you have your place value charts in front of you to help you. This up here, your written instructions, I'll be here to guide you, and you're using your hundredths, your tenths, and your flat or your whole, as well as your die. So now, Josiah, over here I see that you have a room for 1 more 10th. So how many hundredths would you need to fill that up? Nice, you would need 10/100ths. Awesome, you boys can keep working. And now girls, so who's winning over here? I see, so I noticed that Samantha has 5/10 on her flat. So how many tenths would she need to fill this up? 5 more, awesome. Keep going. So now we're all going to come back together, the 4 of us. And who can explain to me, what was the goal of this game? Right, Jim, it was you wanted to fill up your flat or your hole exactly right without going over. And it was pretty hard. Did anyone have a certain strategy or a light bulb moment that they used? Oh, that's interesting, Samantha. So you started off playing always using tenths first, but then you realized when you got towards the end, it was getting kind of nerve-wracking because then you were only left with so much space to fill in your hundredths. So you started using hundredths earlier on as you kept on playing. That's awesome. Any other light bulb moments? Okay, so I want you guys to remember this. I'm sure we'll play again in the future, and then you guys can go off to the next station and continue with the math workshop. Awesome job today.